Welcome to the Infinity Loop Group. I'm Riley,
I'm Krista.
and thank you so much for joining us on this adventure of communication and processing trauma. We're jumping into the chapter, The Spellcaster. Owning your own story is the bravest thing you'll ever do. Brene Brown. A woman who runs with the wolves will question what she's doing at the circus, to begin with. Chris Divorce.
As I was editing this book, my friend challenged me to stop protecting people and tell my story. She sent me that Brene Brown quote. She told me we need my stories to anchor us in the principles and to see ourselves in my story. As I began to type more of my story, I connected with a life force that I tend to dampen in myself. The more vulnerable I was, not worrying about the consequences of telling the story, the more lightness and energy I felt. That's our guidance system, all right. It just felt right. Then I experienced numinous love loving me with utter acceptance and delight as I shared my story. I feel no shame because I experienced my weaknesses through the eyes of that infinite love. My prayer is that you too will sense it's all held in love as you tell your story. Now, the spellcasters. In Life's Golden Ticket, author Brendan Burchard teaches us about awareness in the chapter where the protagonist witnesses a hypnotist at work on the crowd. The secret technique is revealed. The hypnotist is able to hypnotize the crowd by stripping the volunteers of their self-awareness. They're prevented from being able to answer the question, who am I right now? This is done by taking away the 3 reference points every person needs to be self-aware. The stripping away of our much needed defenses is done when we stop paying attention to our thoughts and feelings, stop paying attention to feedback from the outside world, and have someone else tell us who we are. So there's no ability to see, who am I right now? We need to know who we are and how we want to show up in the world. Those on the outside give us feedback on what they see happening in us. Accountability partners, right? The feedback may also come about our behavior. That's one way we grow in our emotional intelligence and our ability to love others. It raises our self-awareness. The spellcasters in society are those who do their fancy hypnotist mumbo jumbo, seduce us to put our brains in hock, and violate our sovereignty over ourselves and what's true for us. Any system in society that wants to manipulate us for its own gain does this. I would even say it's the whole advertising industry, right?
Yeah.
They want to say, you're not enough. You actually need this handbag, right? You
Very
need
much
to
so.
look like this. It's not okay how you're aging. It's not okay you don't have this. You're not okay. They want to strip you from your true self. The spellcasters in society, I already said that. It's really damn scary when it comes under the guise of guidance or development, or someone creeps in through our shame and vulnerability and tells us our reality. Sadly, the helping community is contaminated with those whose egos are stroked by getting others to accept their reality and beliefs, or by transferring their own shame. Some of these quote-unquote helpers are in those positions for the thrill of controlling and manipulating others. I see highly intelligent and well-educated people accept the spellcaster's coaching because the teacher possesses a spiritual power that hypnotizes them. Charming people charm. That's that likability thing that we drop. Our discernment. It's eerie and something I'd like to figure out how to break over people. I found out the hard way there's a reason Jesus asked the man who was lame if he wanted to be healed. Not everyone wants to be woken up from the spell. Boy, is that true. I've been the victim and the witness to people with enormous spiritual power that come as an angel of light. They deceive others, and it's quite devilish. There was just enough truth to get those with open hearts to not see the techniques used. The spellcasters create the halo effect, which is the tendency to like everything about a person, including things we haven't observed. They're just so darn likable. It's as if it creates a halo over their whole being, and we give them way too much benefit of the doubt. Sometimes the volunteers fall in love with the hypnotist and don't see the dark deeds done behind the curtain by the showman or showwoman. That's part of the seduction, too, how they sneak into the most intimate place in us. In one situation many years ago, it was a showwoman who cast a 2-year spell over me to use and abuse me. Since then, I've seen spellcasters in every arena. They roam among us at companies, churches, and communities. The show woman was a charismatic and deranged cult leader who was esteemed in the charismatic evangelical church I belonged to. Some dynamics in my childhood made me the perfect candidate for a cult. Besides those dynamics, as a young woman of 18 who wasn't listening to herself, I didn't believe my own self was enough. My own truth was enough. And so I needed someone to fix me. I sabotaged opportunities and ran from living my most courageous life to cater to a pathological woman who would point out everything that was wrong with me according to her insane need to be served. All the abusers in my life up to that point were shameless in what they did. I took on the unowned shame and carried it within myself. It was their unowned shame. My hope was that this quote unquote spiritual teacher would be the one to teach me how to have boundaries because I couldn't understand how I kept disconnecting from my power. I was dissociating to protect myself when someone violated who I was. As a young mystic who saw and knew things but didn't know how to navigate those waters, I was going to be mentored. My life was going to be useful in serving someone who had gifts that would serve the world and God. I was trying to heal from all the abuse up to that point. I was a sitting duck.
What really stands out to me with what you were talking about is the desire for people to find someone outside of themselves. And I find that it's very much this fine line of finding someone that's helping you and finding someone that's kind of guiding and manipulating you, right? Like this need,
Guiding you in an unhealthy way.
right? That's what I'm saying is how do we, I guess this is why the discernment is so important, right? This is why you had the one chapter before the next, because this is where our discernment is so important when we are searching for help, to be open to our own shortcomings of searching for help for answers outside of ourselves, instead of realizing that someone else is going to unlock the answers inside of us.
That's
To me,
the
that's
healthy
just that
development
finding
where
that line.
it rises up. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point. For 30 years, I worked on myself to recover from the devastation of those 2 years, but I continued to have pathological people in my life. Arsenic was in my cereal, as I say. Leo was a gift as we grew through our brokenness. We caused each other pain, but our hearts broke for one another when we did. When I met the last spellcaster, I thought was more healed than I was. When I fell under the spell of my necessary nemesis, it had similar themes. I didn't know how to live my most courageous life. Toxic shame lived in me, and I thought I needed to be fixed. Coaching isn't about fixing.
Mhm.
Coaching is about supporting, giving skills, loving, guidance, helping someone find their own well within them and their own North Star.
I mean, so to me, that's ultimately exactly what we were talking about.
Yes.
It's not saying, "Oh, I have this." I mean, so much we go on Instagram and or social media, and everything is about, "Oh, I have the best way for you to lose weight. Oh, I have the best way for you to get sales for your job. Oh, I have the best way." And it's ultimately, and at least in our opinion, the best way is different for everybody. But ultimately, the best way for you to get there is really about support, not some magical step program that's going to heal you on the other side. It's more like, no, these steps create the support for you to heal yourself. Would you say that's kind of what
Mm.
separates the infinity loop to most other coaches and teachers out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's some coaches where you can see and they do it so well, um, and how they operate, and I would say in the divine feminine. And and but like even I'm really getting away, Riley, from I'm really just questioning everything that's ever said. I go, well, I think that's true. I don't think that's true. I have my own sovereignty over my own experience and my own expertise to go, yeah, I don't believe in that. But I guess the point we're making is it is such an organic process of that's why it's connection, awareness, and inquiry.
Mm.
That's why it is that magic formula, that your own self-awareness of your own, you know,
It's questioning your thoughts and other people's thoughts, and
yeah.
continuing to question them. Where did these thoughts come from? Where did the feelings from these thoughts originate? Is there truth in them? Am I lying to myself? Are others lying to me? Ultimately, it's just the loop of questions that
Yeah.
make you trust yourself and others around you more. Because the more you question these things, the more the answers are fortified. Because there isn't a one point. Well, because I told you so. It's like, no, we know because we've tested it and we've questioned it.
Yeah, even some of these really successful spiritual teachers online, and I'm like, "Oh, they say so many good things." And I'm like, "Oh my god, this little clip on Instagram, like the way they're talking to this person is so parental. It's so controlling.
So finger
It's
pointing,
it's
that's the
so
vibe I
like I
get.
know exactly and you're going to do this and this it's so not in the divine feminine. I'm thinking about when Leo and I were consulting and we had studied under these, fathers of organizational development that are some of the biggest leaders, thought leaders in the world, solving some of the biggest problems, getting the highest paycheck per day for what they do. And they are very much like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we can do this change. And I remember we were coaching um, a company in Maine. And I remember one of the young guy goes, and we were coaching and developing them, and they were handling clients. And I remember one of them going, no, 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 no. I could never go to one of our clients and not have all the answers. I could never sit there and make the space of let's question that. And I'm like, oh no, there's a way of doing it. Trust me, this is actually a much higher way of. But it's like, no, no, no. You have to have all the answers, everything you recommend. This is what we're going to do with your marketing campaign.
I mean, I think it's more and more obvious that that's not true because more and more people desire authenticity more than anything else.
Mm.
And there's nothing more unauthentic than being the person that knows it all. There's something so authentic to going, I don't know, but I'll get that answer for you. Or I don't know, but we'll solve that together. And I think that in all business right now, I mean, in all relationships, I think that's what people are striving and feeling the need, like the want most than anything. I think that's why podcasts are so on the rise, is because it's creating this time for someone to really bare their soul, and not put on a facade, but truly just go, this is me, warts and all. I,
Yeah.
I might stumble over some words. I might, say the wrong thing, but at least you know where I'm coming from. And I think just, what I mean, as we can apply that to business, I don't think that I will ever hurt you in sales.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking, like, so one of the main principles of the infinity loop is this inquiry process, is this ability to dialogue and to have that wide view that even sees all of our own. It starts to go, wow, I know that I have biases here. I know that I have blind spots, and it makes this space. And one of the principles, which we're going to teach, very in depth, but is how someone's actually thinking when they're not talking because they're needing to reflect. And it's like if you're developing someone and you ask them a question, leave space for it to arise in them. And that would be the same thing of when you were as a coach or as a parent, of leaving this spaciousness. That's the divine feminine, to be going sitting in the presence, and what is the intelligence that's going to drop down.
Yeah, for me, what rings true right there, like what I'm hearing is so much about what we teach and coach is the self-empowerment.
Mhm.
And so is when you finally are making these decisions that are going to change your life, it's not, well, I'm doing this because someone told me I should, and that if I do it as they said, that it's going to create this result. No, no, no. If you've done the work yourself and done it properly and asked yourself and your accountability buddies the right questions, no, you should be so confident in your decisions because it's coming from your root and your truth, not someone else's directive. It's
Yeah,
like you're like,
yeah.
oh, no, no, I know that this is my values, and that's why I'm making this decision. I don't have to I don't have to outsource my values and my decision making, because you are able to be grounded, because I can go back to asking questions of how I'm feeling, why I'm doing it, what someone's saying, and just always remember to keep questioning, keep
I
questioning.
just also thinking about how, being teachable was such a principle crammed down my throat.
Mm.
And, um, but you can't have that without the masculine, with the boundaries.
Well, to
Like
me,
being
those
teachable and being really like Socrates, he would want everyone to question him
right. I mean,
as a teacher.
to me that's the opposite of being teachable, though, because
Yeah.
to true. So when someone I find is using the be teachable, it's more like take what I'm saying as fact and just memorize it, instead of really the be teachable is search for more questions. Maybe you can come up with a question that I hadn't thought of either, that could solve something better for both of us. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? So anyone to me that is not encouraging of questions doesn't actually have any desire for the truth. And so someone that's saying, be teachable, don't ask questions, doesn't actually want you to be teachable. They want you to be programmable.
Oof, that's really good. I was want to also say one of our brands is Infinity Health, and when I listen. This is my freaking favorite hobby is listening to these researchers daily on these podcasts about health and nutrition and longevity and the really the ones I really respect, they're in that space of I don't know. We're like, I don't know all the answers. I can only like everything has a downside. Right? Fasting has a downside. Doing too much cold has a downside in the ocean. Like it is
Well,
such a
there are no solutions. There are just
trade-offs.
trade-offs.
Like what are we choosing? And then you test it and then listening to they say your own experience of what your body can eat. It will show you if you can eat the fruit, if you can eat carbs, if you can do this keto, like being able to be empowered that way. And oh, that is where my prayer is that I can just feel it. That's where we want to go to in society, right? Where we all come home to ourselves and yet walk humbly with accountability and inquiry, but that are immune to the spellcasters. Do you have any idea where we are anymore?
Yes, right there after their own North Star.
Okay, thank
The
you.
way we help
The
someone.
way we help someone see their shadow isn't by dismantling them and taking away their sovereignty over the truth. That's exactly what the narcissist cult leader does. They dismantle you, they strip you of any healthy defenses. We neither control nor bully. It's not about rage, gaslighting, lying, projecting, manipulating, cruelty, using, and abusing. A coach doesn't do things to intentionally trigger an emotional reaction to feed off. That's pathology. I knew all of that, but I couldn't break the trauma bond. Besides all the reason one gets sucked in by an abuser, spellcaster, my ego of believing I was this loving, giving, and supernaturally gifted coach who could reach the unreachable was activated. We talked about that, right? Last podcast. And nearly every time I felt able to break off this addictive relationship, he begged me to not give up on him in his quest to find spiritual freedom. In his twisted and monstrous rage, he shamed me that I would be embarrassing him and accused me of lying and in turn forcing him to lie when I wanted to leave even for a few days. Ironically, a liar for him, I did become. I think it is the word ironically there. Maybe it's paradoxically. Sometimes I use that wrong. You would never know from reading this how much power I had prior to meeting this man. I was stripped of it quickly. He found both my shame and my deepest yearning to be purified and used quote unquote coaching me to have cultic control over me. It was the most head spinning experience I've yet to endure. And I would say more than even the 2-year cult when I was 18 to 20, because of other dynamics. It was even more head spinning. A supernatural dark force, to say the least. Believing I did love that man more than anyone had ever loved him, I would have done anything to help him. Therein lies the problem. We don't ever do anything to help anybody. We choose it's like someone would say if they were fighting for custody, I would do anything, and they will lose all their financial resources to fight when they didn't stand a chance of winning. And that's why you have to that's another thing that I do is help people through family law situations, and someone could seduce you, an attorney could seduce you, or friends could go, you have to get full custody. You have to do this. What kind of mother are you if you don't lay down $100,000 to fight for your children? And you're like, your children could benefit from that money, and you're going to lose in the California court system. It's.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me
I'm
of,
just thinking about attorneys, how they are such
well, it
spellcasters.
reminds me
Can be.
of the kind of ancient story of in Rome where the two women are fighting over the
Mhm.
baby, and then
And Solomon.
yeah, and he offers to cut the baby in half, and the one woman goes, no, 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 fine, give it to her, and he goes, oh, well, then it must be your baby because clearly you're willing to not have the baby for the baby's best interest. And yeah, I mean, I think that's finding that fine line of, are you fighting for something for your own ego hit or for
Mm,
because you truly do care for them.
mm.
And we just need to always be questioning that, where
Yeah.
are our motives coming from, where are,
Where's fear taken over and blinded us to the whole picture?
well,
Sorry.
yeah, I think that's great too. And where is this, um we heroize ourselves, right? We
Oof.
are kind of the hero in
Oof.
ourselves, but in our own story. But
Mm,
we can make it that we are only doing anything for the good, and
mm.
if we aren't questioning that, the pathway to hell is paved in good intentions, and we wonder why we end up in such dark places when we aren't questioning our own beliefs or our own path.
Again, that brings back to what you shared about how we need to be like water, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I mean, so
We need to
many.
be with water before we even go to these decisions.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and so much, it's so interesting is so much of science is now backing how much water holds information. So it holds
Mm.
the trauma. So I mean, so that phrase from him is just taking on more and more layers of meaning
Mhm.
as we become more knowledgeable of really what that means to be like water.
I'm just experiencing right now. I think it's why I feel so good since we started this podcast, but just to look at myself to this degree again publicly, and to by doing this book on to this level, seeing my own ego, seeing my own stuff in the custody battles. It doesn't feel bad, it feels good. It feels like life and joy to own your shit. It's just it makes me just, I'm beaming when I see the truth. Living in the truth does set you free.
Well, it's forced accountability, right? There's a comedian talking about how he loves doing his podcasts and openly talking about anything he's struggling with because it makes him now held accountable to everyone that's listening.
Mm.
So he goes, oh, I'm struggling with this, and I'm going to do this to fight that struggle. And now every single person that's listening to his podcast is, not everyone, but there's a collective of people that now are going to check in on him, or going, hey, did you follow through, did you, and he said how much he's noticed it's just made his life better. And I feel like we are doing this in our own spiritual way by
Yeah. And
being.
people are reaching out to us and saying, yes, they're in the Infinity Loop group, which is so beautiful because they're resonating with it. Oh. Addicted to the moments he was nice to me, they became over the top high points in my brain and body. Only one who's been in a relationship with an abuser knows that desperate addiction. My birthday celebration with this man and a group of friends associated with him felt like the happiest day of my life. That was my 50th birthday. Because he was kind to me, I think it was my 50th. No, 51st. Um,
I thought maybe everything was
I
going.
thought everything was going to be different and I wasn't a total screw up for being in this relationship. Now accustomed to eating pig food, I was grateful for any scrap of what I thought would nourish my soul. In 2 days, his usual treatment of me resumed. Within the month, the relationship ended, and the day of liberation was the happiest day of my life. I think of what the therapist said to Nicole Kidman's character, who was in an abusive marriage, in Big Little Lies. She told her that her husband wasn't well, but neither was she. I had become unwell. That was a great example of a great therapist in that TV series. My much needed fire was smothered. The times when I did feel that fire, it was more powerful than the PTSD that would make me collapse and crawl back into his arms to feel safe. I needed to fan the flame of my fire and let it move me out of the dangerous situation. That holy fire is more powerful than the dark force of shame, spells, and abuse. My beautiful qualities of empathy, high relationship investment, adaptability, wanting to look at my own contribution, wanting to grow, as well as my shadow aspects, went into the pot that made this diabolical stew. Stool. It's the same thing about, it is like a stool. Um, that whole thing, your strength is your weakness, right? All those things were in me. This necessary nemesis served me well by triggering them so I could heal. Most spellcasters just deceive through their persona, so people stop paying attention to what's right in front of them. Their words cast a spell. They have likability, charm, and false light. Although they hide who they really are and act normal, I believe if we're awake and learn how they work, we'll sense a counterfeit. We'll sense the dark force and power that renders people powerless if they don't know how to resist. We are women who run with the wolves, but we have to want to be awake, and that will cost us. If we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings and witness them without censoring them, if we allow others to speak and inquire into our lives in a respectful, non-manipulative way that creates learning, and if we know who we are in our deepest truth that cannot be twisted by shame or abuse, we will be able to resist the hypnotists among us. In our deepest truth lives our true self that's abundant. From our awareness to our internal abundance, we stand alone from the crowd. We know we have all we need inside of us. We don't have to buy what the spellcasters are selling to be okay. We don't have to participate in the circus. That's being conscious.
To me too, it just rings through of when you ask the questions of yourself, someone else can't break you down with their questions, right? When you've been asking your own tough questions of who you are, you only become more solidified and powerful in your persona that the
Not your,
spellcaster.
yeah, not persona, but I would, because that's false. More solid in your integrity in your soul, would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, in
yeah,
your true self.
yeah, in your true self, yeah. Versus persona would be the kind of the mask. Yeah, I know what you meant.
Um, what was the cost to your integrity, your sovereignty over yourself, or your guidance system? So from your experience, so I guess the cost was being being in those abusive relationships,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you basically are giving up your life to an abuser. You are now serving the narcissists. And that is the problem of being open and teachable and hungry to learn and shamed to not, like, that's what I was talking about at the bar, that the necessary nemesis, he was testing me. And shame, how much can I break this person down to control them, to let me, and he kept saying, let me lead, let me lead, let me lead. And he was so into this, the masculine and feminine, but that's what I would call toxic masculinity. Like that's no what like I had to like drop 50 IQ points to be sitting at the frickin' bar with this guy. Like I had to become a dumbass and put my brain in hawk, like everything I knew. And again, it was like the counterfeit. I'm like, this guy is not, he doesn't know what it is to truly develop and coach people. He has one little trick.
So it says, in what ways were they able to take away your awareness? And so you're
You have
saying
no self-awareness. You are,
creating that formula of
you
let me
split,
lead, let me lead,
let me lead.
shut down your awareness.
You cannot like you can't even ask a question. It's just this little formula that someone has, that they it's a formula. They're on autopilot. This is the only thing I have, and they're insecure. And there's no space. So what does it cost? It costs you your life. The life that you were supposed to have, to give, to serve the world in your unique expression of your soul. You are giving away your life to darkness.
Your own individual sovereignty.
You are selling your soul, the gift of life that you have been given, to submit to anyone of any gender that needs to dominate you, for you to feel safe, instead of going, wait a minute, I have an infinite self that I'm safe no matter what shitstorm is created, because I decide to not go along with the company line.
Speaking of shitstorms, holding on in the strongest winds. Fear not is not dependent on our ability to navigate the situation. James Finley.
And what that quote meant to me is that, it's not all up to us. Fear not, when Jesus said that, wasn't like, fear not because you're going to navigate it perfectly. It's fear not because love is holding you and life is calling your name. It's like you said, Riley, even when I am not looking out for my best interests, the universe is. That's it.
That's exactly what that's what the 12-step program, most programs that are in so many ways about freeing and empowering the person is so much about letting go and realizing how powerless you are, right? Yes, you are supposed to try your best, but understanding that your best isn't going to be what gets you there. It's your best and the rest of the world working in your best interest as well. It's like the world's always changing and adapting, and how we change and adapt with it is whether we feel the pain or the bliss. And really the bliss is in both when we're open to the change.
Again, I'm just thinking about some of the people we listen to that we love, that are like a lot in the masculine, but they don't talk a lot about powerlessness, do they? They talk about their power and self-agency and what they can do. But what we love is, again, the paradoxical nature of all spiritual truth is we are both, like we talked, perfect and imperfect, healed and broken, powerful and powerless. Right? That's the infinity loop.
I think a lot of them talk about, they try and stay away from that because they feel like it encourages stagnation. But I believe, like, someone to kind of be in a terrible place in their life and then choose to not make any decisions because, oh, I'm powerless. And I would say that's never what the powerless teaching is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, anyone that's already doing the spiritual work, the idea of powerlessness isn't going to stop you from taking the steps to be your best self.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot to explore. We're often unaware we're directed by our traumas. It's not just, quote unquote, the wounded one who trauma is an issue for. You know, when it's like you're the identified patient. Like someone who ended a friendship with me was like, she thinks you're mental. You're mental. You know, it's just like you have now been identified as the one with the wounds and everything's put on you.
Well,
Like they're just
well, your
all
trauma,
together.
is going to uh, preface how you interact with someone else in their trauma,
Mm,
right? And so that's kind of what you're getting at here. It's just because someone's trauma is triggered at this moment, y- how you interact and help that person is going to be based on your own trauma as well. And so, yeah, I'll let
that's
you
so
continue.
good. That's so good. We could all use some encouragement around it. The more we let go, instead of trying to control what cannot be controlled, the better everything is. We lead better when we realize we can't hold on, right? That's the first step of the 12 steps. I need a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity. Trauma will kick your ass. It needs care and caution, wisdom and patience. It makes for damn stimulating conversations, how we really heal. I've known trauma as a frequent shipmate. You're in the boat. The storm comes suddenly and so violently that holding on isn't possible. You lose your grip and get tossed out. Surely you'll keep sinking and drown. You do keep sinking as you accept the inevitable. You're no match for these waters. You finally hit the ocean floor. You've never seen this view before, not where you get to touch it. You think you must have died, but you realize you're breathing underwater and you have changed form. The old form wouldn't allow you to survive. And so you've become a mermaid or merman, blue and green to match the decor of your new furnishings. Healing of trauma takes what lies down deep below the surface, the dark current that drew us down, to provide the new form to transfigure into something beautiful and able to survive and thrive. We need to be able to breathe underwater, but that comes after we let go and die to won't survive this new landscape. Trauma brings up what needs to be transformed in us in our deepest yearning for freedom. And I would say that we need to be in touch with that yearning, that we sometimes deaden that yearning. That's what we do with our busyness and our materialism and our making every life about what's going on the outside, the activities and this and that and the accomplish and what's going on with your life versus what's going on with your life, what's deep within.
What to me, what it's the world we know and see as possible versus the world that is now and people are holding on to like this old world, right? Well, clearly we're going through a time where the world is changing in so many ways. So for that world to change, we also need to be changing. And to me, that this is so much of what it is we do all this spiritual work and then forget about all of it because we are caught up in our job. And well, to be a better version of this, I now have to no longer follow my spiritual path because I need to make that more money, or
Yeah.
understanding that no, 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 everything will be better if we just lean more into our spiritual path and not worry about this physical, because the physical will catch up to our spiritual.
It will be a natural coming out of the self-love and the self-awareness and the responsibility. Yeah, that's so good. Falling to the bottom of the ocean is the ultimate letting go. It's not that we give up. It wasn't an option to do anything other. We were sunk. Resisting would have made us waste our breath, gasping instead of calmly watching the deep, dark mystery unfold all around us as we fall deeper and deeper. And James Finley would say, we are falling deeper and deeper into the oceanic love of the divine.
Mm.
Healing of trauma involves death. We break our connection to the contracts we made subconsciously, the rules we created we thought would help us survive. And that's, our coping, like stuff, the Enneagram, like what did you kind of create to be liked, to be safe in this world, right? What's your fallback behavior? That's all part of our contracts. I'm someone that supports people. I'm someone that, is helper.
Well, so much from my experience, the people that are holding on to their trauma the most are the ones that have now identified with their trauma, right?
They haven't died.
That's so much a part of who they are as a
The
person that
victim
they
card, the
right that
victim
they
card.
almost explain that as, oh, I'm this and this happened to me, and it's so hard to move past that trauma when you identify it with so strongly.
That's when the story is no longer serving you, right? It's the beautiful part of telling our story, but then when the story becomes your identity. Yeah. We break our down. Okay. Healing involves a dissolution of the form that carried the body and mind. It's a mythical merging with an underworld that turns drowning people into mermaids. I want to be more healed. I want to be tossed out of the boat beyond my own strength to hold on, thrust into the deepest of seas where only mystery holds me and makes me into something that's beautiful and transformed. The bumps on the way down rearrange me in preparation for a death and resurrection of a spectacular display. I want to swim with the dolphins and wear seashells in my hair. I want to get to know my brothers and sisters who live in these waters. So again, I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes to all the commotion that brought me to the bottom of the ocean. Sometimes we're wearing the proper life preserver and we still drown. Sometimes we just aren't thinking we'll need it. But it doesn't matter, because if we don't live in a world where grace is, where we're made into mermaids, I would rather just drown in the bottom of the sea and call it a day.
Mm.
But we do live in that world. Even in the falling, we're being prepared for our new forms. We don't see it coming, that we're going to be mermaids. But that's why we need other mermaids to tell us it's going to be okay. Your life will never be the same. But anyone who wants life to stay the same or believes it's anything we're able to control isn't interesting enough to become a mermaid. Mystery belongs to those willing to be at sea to begin with. So don't lose heart when you realize you can't hold on. Something else more interesting is about to happen. Accept it and enjoy the view on the way down. We're all waiting for when you come up in your transformed self. Daryl Hannah was looking pretty good in Splash. I don't know if people remember that movie. They're probably all too old. She was an actress, but it was a Tom Hanks movie. She was a mermaid.
What stood out as something you've never thought of before? I mean, for me, I just really love the imagery of the mermaid, especially us being such water people. You know, we really love going into the ocean, and I call you a mermaid all the time. And yeah, I think just that imagery, I think, is very powerful and helpful for people and their trauma journey. Trauma
And that
journey.
one of the things on the recovery part of work that we do is breathing underwater. And that's something Richard Rohr calls his 12-step program for addiction. How do you learn to live differently? Breathe underwater. How do you let go? That's really one of, like you're saying, the one of the key principles in life is letting go
Well,
and surrendering to what is happening.
To
to
me,
you, the
it
powerlessness.
runs along that line of forgiveness is not for the one you forgive, but for yourself,
Mhm.
right? And so to me, those kind of run along that same line, right?
Yeah.
So to process your trauma, you must let it go, and to forgive that person, you aren't doing it for them, but for yourself.
And you're forgiving yourself that you didn't have your life jacket on. You're forgiving reality for what it
You
is. You're
you
forgiving God for
forgiving
the
yourself for not having the tools to deal with the problem at the time, but now you're choosing to learn those tools for that future problem.
Mhm. And we sometimes think holding on versus letting go is going to what's make it right? We almost use more of the ego and people go, okay, you got to do this. You got to do this. It's like, no, let's like breathe underwater.
Well, I again love using the imagery, and I would say it's like trying to get to the other side of the ocean in a boat, not realizing that the boat's going to crash, and it's much faster for you to transform into a mermaid to swim across
I love
than
it.
to hold on to a boat that, even if you didn't get knocked off, is going to sink eventually anyways. So it's like goes, oh, you're able to hold on, so great. That boat's not going to get you to the destination that you want to go, no matter what. Even if the boat is planning on getting there, oh, you held on when you shouldn't have, and now you need to evolve faster to get to it's like
Beautiful.
it's like the
Beautiful.
business thing too. I really love that aspect of what got you to one step isn't going to be what gets you to the next. And I think that that's something we just need to continuously remember with our spiritual growth and journey. Wherever we hit a wall, it's just important to go back to our questions, because we need to learn a new tool, because the tools that got us here aren't going to be what get us to the next place.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was just hearing Deepak Chopra doing something I was telling you about, but it was about somebody who was so worn out from their spiritual discipline, trying so hard. And he goes, yeah, there's like no flow in that. Like, let go.
Which it should be fun and
And
exciting
childlike. Yeah.
and childlike,
Yeah.
when I
When you
mean,
just surrender,
when you're excited, everything's childlike, right?
mm, you
Well,
enter the kingdom of God.
amen. Well, with that, again, thank you so much for joining us on this Infinity Loop group adventure. If these tools are helpful for you, please share, write a comment, start the conversation. We'd love to respond and talk with you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Till next time.